Story. I never meant to stare. Honestly, I didn't. But when you're stuck on a freezing outpost near the edge of the Draction Rift, surrounded by creatures twice your height, with armor that looks like it was grown rather than built, it's hard not to slip up once in a while. Especially when you're working next to Commander Reactivates of the Velari Dominion. The first time I saw her, I thought she was carved from obsidian. Tall. Sculpted. Sharp-jawed. Eyes like molten silver. Her species was famous for their combat instincts, their imposing posture, and the shimmering bioplates that grew across their bodies like armor. And it was those plates, specifically, the ones that curved across her upper torso, that kept catching my eye. Not out of attraction. Well, not only out of attraction, but because I had never seen armor that looked alive. The plates shifted subtly with her breath, glowing faintly when she was focused. They fascinated me in the way living technology always had. But to her, it probably looked like a human staring at parts of her body humans weren't supposed to. So when she turned toward me, eyes narrowing, voice low and controlled. "You keep looking there, human." I froze. But that wasn't the moment everything changed. That came afterward. Much afterward. Before that moment, I was just Evan Reese, maintenance specialist, Terra Liaison Program, stationed at Outpost 7, where humans and Velari worked together to monitor rift activity. No real importance. No real danger. Just a human trying not to get crushed by soldiers who could break walls with their elbows. Reactivates, though? She was a legend. The kind of warrior kids back home pretended to be in VR training sims. So when she caught me staring, when her shadow fell over me, wings flexing slightly behind her carapace, I felt every survival instinct I had scream inside my skull. Beginning. Day 1. I had been on shift for 19 hours, fixing a power relay that kept overloading every time the station's shield grid flickered. Reactivates supervised, not because she wanted to, but because protocol stated every mixed species team needed at least one Velari commander overseeing high-voltage repairs. Her job was to stand there and make sure nothing exploded. My job was to fix the thing before it did explode. So, naturally, I kept glancing at her plates, the ones glowing brighter each time the current spiked. I was tracking the energy feedback, not her body. But try explaining that to a warrior known across 3 sectors for ripping a pirate battleship in half with her bare claws. "You keep looking there, human," she repeated, stepping closer. I swallowed. "I'm tracking the bioluminescent readings," I said, holding up my scanner. "Your armor reacts to electrical surges. I'm trying to predict the next spike." Her eyes softened, but only for a flicker. Then she exhaled, long and controlled, and turned away. That was the moment that changed everything. Not because of what she said, but because of what I noticed. Her glow, usually a smooth, steady light, was flickering. Weakening. I had read about that in briefings. Velari armor dimming meant exhaustion. Severe exhaustion. But I didn't say anything. Not then. Because humans didn't tell Velari commanders they looked tired. That was a fast way to get thrown across the room. The incident. 3 days later, the alarms went off. A rift surge, big enough to fry the entire outpost, hit without warning. I had about 30 seconds to reach the emergency bypass. Reactivates got there in 10. "Human. Move," she barked, yanking a shield panel aside with brute strength. But she wasn't fast enough. The surge pulse hit. A shockwave tore through the station. I felt the floor vanish underneath me and slammed into a wall hard enough to see stars. Through the ringing in my ears, one thought cut through. The bypass didn't activate. And without it, the shields would collapse. The whole station would be ripped apart. I forced myself up. Reactivates was already there, hands buried in cables, breath ragged, glow flickering violently. She wasn't going to last. I saw her knees buckle. Then I moved. Instinct. No hesitation. I grabbed the spare conductor rod, jammed it into the panel beside her, and redirected the current into my suit's grounding mesh. My body felt like it was being cooked from the inside out, but the bypass kicked in. The shields stabilized. The surge dropped. I collapsed. The last thing I saw was Orbital dropping beside me, talons out, catching me before my head hit metal. Then darkness. Middle. I woke up in the medical bay, dizzy, nauseous, and aching everywhere. But that wasn't the surprising part. The surprising part was who was sitting beside me. Orbital. Not standing. Not looming. Not commanding. Sitting. And staring at me with an expression I had never seen on a Velari before. Worry. You are awake, she said softly. Good. I blinked. Are you okay? She looked away, expression shifting strangely. Something raw. Something like guilt. You absorbed a lethal amount of current, she said. Humans are fragile. You should not be alive. Well, I muttered, I'm stubborn. She huffed a sound dangerously close to a laugh. Then her eyes flickered downward, toward my hands. My fingers were still trembling from the electrical overload. She noticed. Why? She asked quietly. Why did you take the current? You could have died. Because you were about to pass out. Her jaw tightened. You looked exhausted, I continued. Your armor was dimming. You noticed that, she whispered. I nodded. That's when she said it. The words that shifted everything between us. You keep looking there, she repeated. But this time, her voice was soft. Not with disrespect, but with awareness. She leaned back, almost stunned. No one sees that. Not even my own soldiers. Because Velari armor dimming was a sign of weakness. A dangerous secret. Something no outsider was supposed to notice, much less understand. You saved me, she said. I shook my head. You saved everyone, I corrected. You almost tore your own arms off trying to stabilize the shield grid. I just helped finish the job. Silence. Then, Evan, she said, using my actual name for the first time, you should rest. I will return. But she didn't move. She stayed. 4 hours. Just sitting there, watching over me like a silent guardian. The shift. Over the next week, something between us changed, slowly, subtly, undeniably. She began checking in on me every morning. She walked with me to engineering meetings, towering over the other humans like a moving wall of obsidian. She corrected soldiers who spoke to me too dismissively. She even adjusted her armor glow so I wouldn't worry she was overexerting herself. We were not friends. Not yet. But something like a fragile truce had formed. A connection. And everyone noticed. Especially Lieutenant Oren, my bunkmate. You know, he said one night, smirking, the entire Velari squad is convinced the commander respects you now. Respects. I repeated. She barely tolerates me. Oh, trust me, he chuckled, if she didn't respect you, you'd be dead. Which was comforting. Sort of. The confrontation. 2 weeks after the surge, we were recalibrating the generator core, an incredibly delicate task requiring precision, coordination, and absolute focus. I kept glancing at the display. Orbital kept glancing at me. Eventually, she tilted her head. You keep looking there again. I nearly dropped my tool. What? No, I wasn't. She stepped closer. Your eyes shift every time the reactor's sublight balance flickers, she said.